Hi, Oliver. Nice to see you.
Hey Dave, thanks. Pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely, same here. Nice to know that you are also working for Bayer. And just to let you know, I'm a proud Bayerite for the last 20 plus years. What about you?
I started in 1995, so it's 20 years ago too, but more in the laboratory biological environment.
Oh, that's nice to know. And I have been with procurement as a function in the last 20 plus years, but of course in diverse roles in country and global levels, and currently lead the rapid deployment team for global procurement based out of Thane in India. What about you?
Yeah, after several years in the lab, so for research and development, and in other biotech technologies and pharmaceutical companies in Germany and Switzerland, I changed to IT quality and the validation of computerized system in very regulatory environments.
That's very interesting to know. And I lived in Germany and was based out of Leverkusen for 1 year and Monheim for 3 years. And we used to live as family in Düsseldorf. Where are you living in Germany?
I'm living with my partner in Cologne, so it's quite close to Monheim, and it's funny because within my apprenticeship, so in the very beginning at Bayer, I've been in Monheim too in the animal health department, and yeah, it's a nice place to be and to work.
Currently, I lead a in-house consulting team which does large program for transformation programs for the procurement function based out of India and China. And of course, the team also and myself also have projects in which there would be kind of travel, be it related to the project requirements. But you know what, frankly speaking, after the pandemic, I think this whole operating model of travel, be it for business topics or be it for personal topics, has definitely taken kind of a different priority, factoring sustainability. So I must say that travel has drastically come down, but I would also say that in a better way, because then you have to prioritize between travel for necessity and business value, and also travel which can be smartly also being replaced by the digital enablers. Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, not much of a travel nowadays because of the digital enablers, but of course when you travel you try to maximize that by meeting as many people as possible.
I can completely understand. So since 3 years, I'm in the audit and inspection department, and it's the same here. So we are, go for auditing to our supplier, contract manufacturer, service provider. And since the 2 years, so we reduce this audit, and it's yeah, induce the audits to be personally locally, but we perform a lot of remote audits. So it's some office audits, or especially for the IT department. So we can perform it in hybrid, some parts remotely and review documents. But yeah, it's reducing a lot of traveling, and another opportunity was up. We set up some hubs so that, for instance, I have colleagues in Japan, in China, India as well, two colleagues, and they are supporting us there locally for the OWL, so that we reduce this global traveling and reduce our ecological footprint. Yeah.
Post pandemic, I think one good thing that has happened is about this hybrid format. And as you rightly said, so we also have the same approach. Because my team members are working across projects with global stakeholders, we made it a point to consciously not travel to the office, because making travel every day to the office, there is no logical element towards it. We are impacting significantly the carbon footprint. And then we are also extensively using the office space for sending of emails, which for me is not logical. So what we do is we meet once in 2 weeks for team meetings, and we utilize the office space for collaboration and team bonding, and then have a very flexible time zone approach across the day, depending on the projects working on with the global stakeholders. But consciously, we have taken a decision not to work on LATAM projects, because that becomes too much of a late night and a early morning kind of a setup. And there we are very particular about the health of the employees. So we said, since it has a biological impact, we will not take that. And we have our LATAM colleagues supporting those projects. You also said that you had colleagues out of India. So have you visited India?
Not yet, unfortunately. So it's the plan. So in 2 weeks, one colleague from India is coming here as well for an audit, and we are visiting the supply center in Elberfeld and where I started when I came back to Bayer. So it will be interesting because he will travel, visit us. So it's the first time we meet us in person. And I was surprised, to be honest, I was very surprised how it works in 2 years or no, 3 years ago, starting building up a team while the pandemic. So I was before, I think, it's not possible to meet not the person, the people, the colleagues in person, but to be honest, so I work now 3 years in projects with colleagues from Berlin as well from other countries, and it was very successful. And last year, when the pandemic ends and we can meet each other, so it was very nice to meet people in person and yeah, to collaborate here. So it's just in a virtual environment. So it's I was very surprised that it works very well, and yeah.
I agree with you. Same with us. Like in my current role, when I had to take up the role it was exactly the pandemic time, and it was May 2020 when I got the opportunity of setting this up for rapid deployment for a pack. And for 2 years, I had not seen my manager, Frank Kobor, who heads this globally. And in the 2 years, myself and the team also got expanded. So we started off as a 5-member team in May 2020, and then until 2 years we were expanded to 21, where we also ended up setting up a team in China. But the fact is that for 2 years, even though we were in the same city, I had not seen my team members.
So it's good to be to meet each other in person.
I fully agree with you. Like I have this current project which is called Ready for Future, and this is in the global business service environment for source to pay process. And I had this project team with whom I have been virtually working for the last 7-8 months, and the team is based out of Manila. It is based out of India, Bangalore, Poland, Gdansk, Barcelona, Spain, and though we were been talking to each other virtually, we still felt that when we met for the first time in a workshop, we were able to have a different experience altogether. So I think definitely I agree with you that the face-to-face connect is really required. I don't know how you see that.
I completely agree with you. It's both possible and required as well for a long time in relationship and good to meet us to have the opportunity now. I think it's the people as well for how they're feeling. So it's more free now after the pandemic time. So it's very nice to have the opportunity.
So I think that's the best part of working in our companies, where you get to work with culturally diverse people on different topics, and you also have the ability to accept or adapt best practices. Yeah, so that's the piece which I find interesting, especially to work in a culturally diverse organization. Yeah. Well, Oliver, I would definitely be interested to know what is that one thing which fascinates you to work for Bayer.
Yeah, I like our vision. Health for all, hunger for none. So I think it's a social responsibility for all of us to solve this global problems. And I'm currently more working in the pharmaceutical part, and here I love to support here the business to ensure our quality, to ensure that our products are safe. I love to be a part here and to support great products from pharmaceutical part. And yeah, this is what I love. We implement a new system, no process, a new process, establish measurement, and this solution should be sustainable so that we can implement and have the quality for a long time ensured. And later we are writing a report, and then we writing some recommendation. They give us our feedback, so it does not stop with the audit. So it will be a reporting and an exchange, and we are working together to find solution here. Yeah. So when we provide a good product with high quality. So I think this is our contribution for health for all, so that our quality is ensured here. And nowadays we are starting thinking, so beside this quality environments, requirements and authority regulation, how we can implement it, measurements which have less impact on our biological footprint. I think that's coming more and more important.
Oliver, you brought a very interesting topic. In your role, you are doing quality audits. At the same time, as you see now that we are also very much focused on sustainability across the value chain. Yeah, so especially when it comes to the supplier manufacturing sites, we also look at sustainability as a very important prerequisite. So how do you see these two topics? Can you explain us more?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So regarding my job and part of the quality assurance, so we make ensure that the product and the service meet the need and expectation for our customers and as well for the authority. So it's part of the safeguard of our license to operate. Therefore, it's important that our products quality and safety is given. And especially in my job, we are sometimes finding gaps or potential improvements at our supplier or service provider or internally as well. So we're going and make this quality assurance to all our suppliers, supply centers. And when we find this gap, so it's important to work together with the colleagues and to identify measurements. And this measurements, so corrective and preventive actions, it's important that they are sustainable so that we find solution for the future and that it have a long time effect. And so 1-2 years later, when we have a re-audit, so we check if this measurement is serious taken and does it works and does not reoccur again. So that's, I think, quite important job from quality assurance here.
Absolutely, that's very interesting to know because you are really very much important contributing to the long-term, let's say, impacts that an organization will have by having those proactive check towards what the current status is. Maybe just a question out of curiosity, at least we in procurement, we have been talking about sustainability for more than 10 years now, and we have been addressing this within our supply chain partners. But we see this as a very clear journey. But now we see a lot of traction because it's not just we, but also the company, the value chain talking about sustainability. Just as an interesting element.
It's coming more and more. It's, I think, one is the culture thing and behavior. So how sustainability and thinking, how important our footprint is. I think it's the culture thing too, and the awareness. But I see it's coming more and more important. Well, sometimes it's not easy to handle the regulatory and quality requirement with the sustainability. So for ecological footprint, for instance, you cannot use directly recycled products for pharmaceuticals. So even for packaging, for instance. So it's you need to ensure that the sterilize requirements are fulfilled, or sometimes. But I think it's coming more and more rethinking, and there are some projects ongoing, and colleagues are involved, and that's quite important. Another aspect, I think, so when we are looking on process, so I think process improvement and how we reduce efforts and errors. So this is have an impact too. So when we do not throw batches away, so I think when you have bad quality or something we cannot offer to the market because of any gaps, so improving quality here, it's reducing production, process and energy in every case.
True. You brought up a very important dimension which I also would support, is that it's a cultural change, and it's not just about where we can make it work, but it's also about where all we can think about make it work. Like for example, let's say, as you rightly said, there are a lot of areas where you will not be able to control, but there are a lot of areas where you can control. Like for example, the way we operate in terms of a working model. Like interestingly, I came across even in our area of work where we do global projects offshore, there are a lot of requests. Sometimes there are requests where people expect us to do the workshop on site. Yeah, they ask us to come and do it on site. And then interestingly, we had a recent case where one of my team members took a very firm position saying that, well, it would be nice to do the workshop on site, but I would leave a significant carbon footprint if I'm going to travel all the way from India to Germany for a 2-day workshop. Do we really need to say that that would have a significant effect? Because it's nice to have, but I can still manage it offshore and see if I can still make the workshop work. And if it doesn't work, maybe we have a lesson learned and we can do it next time on site. Yeah. So that was for me a very inspiring kind of a conversation from my team member, not getting tempted to just travel for the sake of travel, but try to experiment a hybrid format and do the workshop offshore virtually. And it went pretty well. I must say that she was able to manage it pretty well. So as you said, that it's a cultural part, and one important part is wherever it is within your control, you can try to, as much as possible, embrace elements of change which can support in terms of the sustainability initiative. So I understand where you're coming from. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice aspect. It's the same for us in this picture, in this topic. Do you how you provide sustainability measurements or ideas and requirements to our service provider or contract partner? So it's do you have here from procurement side any possibilities so that addressed our vision and our needs to be sustainable to our partners, external partners?
Oh, absolutely. For us in procurement, the topic of sustainability is part of our procurement mission statement. In fact, we have gone ahead and also made a declaration that it would be sustainability over savings. And how do we now engage with our supplier partners? Like, we are multiple ways. For example, we have our supplier code of conduct, which is part of our legal contract documentation and the purchase order documentation. It goes as an annexure, which clearly articulates the expected performance of suppliers related to sustainability that we would like to have. So we have the supplier code of conduct. That's one initiative. We evaluate our supplier. We have supplier segmentation of the key and strategic suppliers, and we expect our supplier partners to do EcoVadis self-assessment of their sustainability position. And we have a certain threshold, like for example, they need to score 75% and above if they would have to be classified as our, let's say, key supplier, for example. So segmenting the suppliers with our engagement with the supplier partners, asking them to proactively sign up for self-assessment of their area with regards to sustainability through the EcoVadis assessment is one initiative that we have. Apart from that, we have also signed up for Together for Sustainability. There are multiple multinational companies in the chemical industry who have signed up for this particular initiative. So what happens is, especially with our supplier partners who supply intermediates, raw materials, which goes into manufacturing of our active ingredients, be it in crop science, pharma, or consumer health, we expect them to sign up for the sustainability audit. And then we have this Together for Sustainability audit, which is going on site and trying to evaluate them on different dimensions of sustainability, be it wastewater management, be it quality systems, be it human rights, be it quality policies. So evaluating them on those different aspects. But once they are evaluated, the score that they get for the Together for Sustainability audit is not just for buyer, but it's for all the other companies who have signed up for this particular engagement. But this becomes a inter-company engagement within the industry. So this eventually also expects from the supplier partners to be mindful and be accepting the fact that they need to sign up for this and raise the bar of performance, and at the same time contribute back in terms of our expectation towards our supplier partners. So just to answer your question, multiple dimensions in which we are driving sustainability.
It's a good topic that you said. It's we're using this shared audit too. So it's so different pharmaceutical companies combined here shared service audit, so that we contract someone and he goes there and look for a broader view, how quality, how sustainability and all this things are ensured or implemented in our contract partners. So it's I think it's internal audit what's supporting here and from buyer side, but as well. Yeah, it's good to have this shared audits and it is a common understanding from all pharmaceutical companies as our raw materials and ingredients needs a lot of energy and resource to produce and so there to find a good effort and yeah, I like this idea. For me personally, it's quite important. So I was combined to nature, so that's think I want to reduce my ecological footprint and buyers support me in two sides. So we have the company bike, so we can buy or rent a company bike. And I like to come with a bike from Cologne to Leverkusen in the morning, so that I reduce here taking. I don't need to take the car, and I come here to my office, refresh, and have some exercises done. So it's a win-win situation. And the other hand, we get now in May we starting. We have our job ticket, so we can take public transport. And well, this is a little bit different, I think, for you. That transportation is different from Germany perspective and to India. And yeah, I think yeah, it's for me it's important and or working from home. I think it's as well a good opportunity to reduce the carbon outcome to contribute our goals or vision here for sustainability. So I'm free and working together with the team to define measurements. So it's when we have an audit or process and we think about it, so does this measurement make sense and improve the quality on one hand side, but as well to improve the process and make it more efficient and both have a direct or indirect impact on sustainability here. What about you, Dev? Do you have how you can contribute here, or does buyer how does buyer support you to contribute our sustainability vision and goals?
Thanks, Oliver. For me personally, I definitely would like to say that I embrace and sign up to whatever best I can do when it comes to sustainability, because it's a big motivation for me. The reason why I say this is today it's not nice to have; it's a must-have. And what are we talking about is basically trying to say that we all have a responsibility as a responsible citizen of this world to protect Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Now, there, it is good to see that the organization that we work with is constantly engaged and committed towards making as much as possible reducing the carbon footprint from the company perspective. But also as an individual, I think that, earlier we used to have the safety mindset, but today we also have to have the sustainability mindset. Because eventually we are talking about somewhere directly or indirectly contributing to saving Mother Earth. Now, there I personally feel very motivated that if I do small little things, which eventually goes in the long journey of protecting Mother Earth, why would I not do that? And why would I not talk about it and also bring that transformational change in my ecosystem? Be it my family, be it my colleagues, be it my friends. It will take a lot of time. I fully understand that because it's a behavioral change. But eventually, we can't get away from that. It's now or never. That's the kind of journey we are into. So I personally would strongly advocate, and that's my motivation. How do I do that? Wherever I have controllable situations, I would definitely promote sustainability. Now, what do I mean by this? For example, let's say we have a hybrid model, and the organization in India has allowed us to work once to 3 days in a week, but they have kept it optional because it depends on the role that you play. Now, in my case, my team is into global projects. They work with global stakeholders. So I have consciously decided not to have my team coming to the office even 3 days in a week. On need basis, they can come because they are located 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers far from the office, and it takes on an average 1.5 hours to travel. So we have made it a point that once in 2 weeks we will have our team meetings where we will meet face to face. That too, when it comes to rainy season, when it is very heavy rains in Mumbai, we would not make it a point to meet once in 2 weeks. We may even meet once in a month. So looking at controllable factors where I can contribute, I would be definitely supportive of seeing how I can work towards sustainability. Like for example, when I was in Germany, I was absolutely fine with the public transport, and I made it a point not to have a car, but travel by public transport. Two things happen. One is that I support by traveling in the public transport, not let's say having the fuel being consumed, and also I enjoy the nature because then while traveling by public transport in the lively city of Düsseldorf, from Wittler to the Düsseldorf station through the tram, and then taking the S-Bahn to Leverkusen Mitte, the whole piece of looking at the nature and being in that whole travel part was something which I could enjoy. So to answer the question, it's not nice to have, but it's a must have.
Yeah.
The earlier we sign it up and the earlier we bring that change in the behaviors, we would eventually support in this whole journey. And of course, we are lucky that we are working in a company who equally promote this particular topic as a key topic for the organization. Like recently we came up with a water strategy as an organization. Now, normally organizations talk about their products, talk about their services, and talk about the strategy of their divisions. But here we are talking about working directly with the United Nations and coming up with a water strategy. So I think it's good to be in an organization which has a clear vision towards sustainability, because that's something which we need to work towards. But also it's up to the individual how much they sign up for that, and there my motivation is absolutely high. So, Oliver, I would be interested to know how do you manage in terms of, do you take breaks? And if you take breaks, what would you do when you don't work?
Yeah. So since the pandemic period, so I'm working in hybrid phase. So some days in the office, some days at home. And yeah, when I'm in the office, I love to meet my colleagues, and we go for lunch here to the restaurant, and then we have the opportunity. We have a very beautiful park and Japan garden here in front of the office. So when after lunch we have a walk and a talk, and this I really love, especially now when we don't see each other so much in person. So it's very nice to refresh. And when I'm at home, so my routine starting walking with the dog. So we have some parks and forests. So my partner and I will take the dog and we make a walk there as well for the lunchtime. That's very nice. And yeah, to energize me, it's yeah, to be with nature, to make some cycling, walking, sports, and yeah, or meet family and friends. That's quite important after work. So, and this is very nice to have this flexibility, and yeah, it support me in my work-life balance. What is for you? How you make breaks, and how you, yeah, meet your family and enjoy the time together?
Quite interesting to know what you said, and thanks for sharing that. And something similar, I would say that when it comes to being in the office, whenever we meet, we make it a point to have the lunch together as one team, because as you rightly said that the lunch breaks are something where you try to share the food and try to understand the preferences, and then you also use the time for some, let's say, light topics. So it's a very good connective kind of a collaboration time. So I really look forward to that whenever we have team lunch together. And then in general, when we are together, we also would make it a point to have a walk in that lunch break to get the kind of a sun hitting us, because normally we miss out the sunshine, especially when we are working on flexible time zones, and then it is important to get some sunshine. So I definitely agree with you that having those breaks and doing those things which motivates you, enables you to enjoy life, I would put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing this. It's quite important. I think it's just it's not so due to the distance and culture, different behaviors. Some topics which are, I think, very valuable for everyone, and to have the opportunity and yeah, or why enable us to work and to choose this time. Dave, we're coming to our top three. So, in your current role, maybe you can explain some words and what are your top three skills and tools, what you need for your job and in your area of expertise?
Sure, Oliver. My current role for me and my team, we are working on global projects which is related to process optimization, program management, category management for global procurement. This means that the role, one of the top three skills that we would be requiring is that we build the trust and be inclusive in terms of diverse perspectives. So having that connect with our stakeholders, building the trust with them, and being mindful of cultural sensitivities, and also being inclusive for diverse perspectives is a very important, let's say, skill that is required in this particular role of mine. Uh, what about you? What is your skill required in your role?
Yeah, well, in my roles, I'm currently global process manager for global database. So I'm working with all the colleagues through the world. So we are using this system. So I'm ensure that it's validated and operating. In this role, it's important to manage and oversee various aspects. One important skill for me is to be flexible in my leadership role, to be open-minded in the conversation, in communication, and what is important for yourself, how you want to work.
One of that, which I would say is important for my current role and also to drive the topics, is leading with purpose. I have this team which is based out of India and China, and we are talking about 20 team members coming with diverse perspectives from different industries and different, let's say, competencies. So engaging them, working with them, and also collaborating with them to drive various projects. I think also factoring the whole purpose for the vision of the company, which is about health for all, hunger for none. I think that itself is a very valuable, let's say, valuable motivation of working, because it's a very strong vision that the company has. But leading the team with a purpose and orchestrating with them together in terms of also especially the expectations from the stakeholders in terms of driving the topics is important. But I think for me personally, leading with purpose is a very important aspect that I need to factor in my role. Uh, what would be your perspectives, or what would be another skills that you think is relevant?
Yeah, I like this topic what you said. So leading with purpose, because defined here guidance or something, or to think about it, starting a team, starting a project or workflow. What is the purpose? What's our goal? Where we want to go, so that everyone understand it, have the same in mind, so that we can work on this. And for me personally, so integrity is it's very important too. So because um, to collaborate with each other, good communication, as I said. So it's to establish solution and guidance, which is sustainable as well for our future and to work together. Yeah.
Got
I
it.
think
And
we are both in very global roles and connection with the people. So it's often to think about it, how does the person get here the information? There are some culture they need more guidance or clear guidance with yes or no. Some others want to have the freedom or the opportunity to find their own. So they are more in a different culture that they identify their own measurements or said so that's important for them, and others you need to push sometimes or to motivate them to see, so we have here a gap, please, we need to work together here and to improve this for our vision. Yeah.
very true. And what would be the last skill, like out of the top three? Is there anything else you would like to add?
So one last skills, what's important is have good communication skills to build up a trustful connectivity between my team and my colleagues within the project.
That's a very important topic you mentioned, Rob. And this is where exactly I think the cultural piece comes into perspective, especially when you're working in cross-functional teams. If we have, let's say, if you're trying to find faults and what went wrong, then probably the conversation doesn't go forward. But if all of us collectively look at it as a continuous improvement process, and not about a specific function, but about the process end to end, and look at continuous improvement, then I think the whole conversation gets into a different engagement altogether. So thanks for sharing that. That's a very important point. Yeah. For me, the third one is also about, especially for our function, which is about connecting and orchestrating the priorities for the organization with the supplier partners. Being customer focused is a very important aspect that we have to factor. When I say the customer, I'm talking about the end consumer, what they're looking for and what are we offering. And in offering that, how do we support from procurement in terms of making that work? So I think being customer focused is a very important aspect that, and for being customer focused, engaging with the stakeholders and having business insight as part of the understanding of the topics is one of the prerequisites that comes with. So that's a very important skill that I think is relevant for our function.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. At least all what we do have an impact to our products, to our what we are providing and service to our customer and patients. To have here the safety in mind. So it's often the question when we found something or want to improve. Does it have an impact, and do we need to mitigate the risk, and or is there no risk, and how we can ensure here a good quality here and support our internal customers. So our externals are of course patients and customers for seeds and for pharmaceuticals, quite important, but as well so our internal colleagues to support them so that we win as a team here and yeah, have a good time, good conversation, good collaboration, and trustful. So it's quite important. I like the life values and the vision from buyers, so that they very put it in the focus here and make it for us in a daily life every time to remind, yeah, to stick here to evaluate, yeah, to improve ourselves and think about it, how we can implement it and
Oliver, it was so nice to have this opportunity of connecting you virtually through this particular forum of the Career Talk. I must say that I had a wonderful time talking with you, and I would definitely like to stay connected with you. And when I'm next time in Germany, I would make it a point to let you know in advance, and we will meet up face to face.
It would be a pleasure. So it was a pleasure for me. I can only echo it. It was very nice to connect with you, to have this talk. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and especially I like as well to meet when I go to lunch with other colleagues, so from other departments, and what's nice to get their way of thinking or to solving problems and what they are doing. So that was very nice to understand what you are doing and what your job and team is. And yeah, you're more than welcome here in Leverkusen, and happy to meet you in person once and stay in contact.
Sure, sure. And if you come to India, I equally would like to host you.
Yeah, hopefully I have the opportunity. It would be a pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.